Right, so I finally finished all 8 main Silent Hill games, so Silent Hill through Silent Hill Downpour. And so, after leaving it a couple of weeks to kind of think over all of those games, I'm going to rank them from worst to best. So, we're not going to be talking about every single Silent Hill game here because we're going to be missing out on the mobile games because I haven't played them. Same goes for the arcade because I also haven't played that. And I'm also not going to be talking about PT because whilst I have played Unreal PT on the PC, it was only a demo and the actual full game, Silent Hills, never came out. So that leaves us with 11 games. And those are Silent Hill through Silent Hill Downpour, Silent Hill the Play Novel, Silent Hill HD Collection, and Silent Hill Book of Memories. So without any further ado, let's get started, with Silent Hill Book of Memories. This was developed in 2012. This was released in 2012 by WayForward Technologies. So, first of all, it's not even a horror game. It's basically it's a dungeon crawler set in the Silent Hill universe, with the most one-dimensional characters ever. Like, seriously, this is Silent Hill we're talking about, which are very story-driven games. So that's pretty bad. Yeah. It's got the most unoriginal enemy design in the series, technically, because all enemies in the game are recycled from previous ones. And basically, you have to just make your way through a whole bunch of bland-looking levels to do stuff. I don't even remember. To be honest with you, I just didn't think it was very good. So, yeah. I mean, as a game, it's somewhat playable, but it's definitely a completely unnecessary and a very weird addition to the Silent Hill franchise. So, yeah. Let's move on to number 10, where we have Silent Hill HD Collection. This was also released in 2012, and it was made by Hijinks Studios. This is it's barely a collection because it only contains the second and third games in the series. What else? Sorry, I'm reading my notes from here, so that's why I'm not looking at you guys. So it only contained the second and third games in the series, so it's barely a collection. And whilst, yes, Silent Hill 4 didn't really get the best reception, it was a very mixed game in terms of reception, and the first game definitely would have taken a lot of work to port over. Nevertheless, it just feels incomplete, really. Although, I don't really think Silent Hill 1 and 4 are missing out on much, though, considering the embarrassing number of glitches in these versions of the game. And the voice work, whilst I guess technically it's better, it's a better performance. It just doesn't carry the same tone as the original actors did. So yeah, but yeah, seriously, I had Silent Hill 3 crash on me 4 times whilst I played through this one. I played through the 360 version, which apparently never got a patch, so maybe that was my fault. Alright, anyway, let's move on to number 9. Silent Hill, the Play Novel, released in 2001. This was just a Konami one. So it's basically just a visual novel version of Silent Hill 1. And it will walk you through scenarios of the original Silent Hill. And you'll pick what you want to do, and then it will affect the ending you get. This was exclusive to Japan, and as I'm sure you can guess by the fact that it's a visual novel, it's all in Japanese, which is a language I don't speak. However, there was an unofficial fan translation on the PC, and that's the way I played through it, and it's pretty alright, yeah. For what it is, it works. So, yeah. Let's move on again to Silent Hill Homecoming, number 8. This was released in 2008 by Double Helix. So, to me, Silent Hill Homecoming is kind of the start of, the beginning of the end of Silent Hill, as we kind of knew it. This was the first game in the series that really started to feel less and less like Silent Hill. And I mean, you know, I think Homecoming could have been good. You know, that's the thing, because like Silent Hill 4 was a very divisive game. So, you know, this was Konami's chance to take on board a lot of the criticism that game got, and, you know, use next-gen technology to basically invigorate, you know, new life into some of the aspects of Silent Hill that were starting to become a little stale. But instead, what we got was Alex Shepard, one of the most boring protagonists in the series. Very action-rich combat that has you stringing together light attacks and heavy attacks into combos in the midst, you know, dodge rolling out of the way like Action Man 3 or whatever. Wait, isn't Action Man a movie? I don't know. Yeah. And there's also something I need to talk about as well, because you've got a lot of assets from the Silent Hill movie as well. And one thing that they did in this game, like the way they use Pyramid Head in this game, like seriously, the fact that there's just a cameo there, you know, like it's such a shitty thing to just put Pyramid in there just to be cool. Yeah, and anybody who knows about Silent Hill knows that, you know, Pyramid Head being in any game other than Silent Hill 2 is just a big no-no. It's a big no-no. Anyway, let's move on to my number 7 pick. Silent Hill Origins, released in 2007 by Climax. So this game is a prequel to the original Silent Hill, hence the name Origins, and it is set 7 years before the first game, and it basically explores the events that led up to Harry's time in the town in Silent Hill 1. So we begin with Travis Grady, who is a truck driver, who basically is taking a shortcut through Silent Hill, and then when the little girl runs out in front of his truck, whoa, we've never seen that before, he stops, and instead of just getting back in his truck and continuing on driving, he decides to chase the girl. And he's eventually led to a house that is just engulfed in flames. And I did like that, because you see all this fog, and then eventually you find out that it's not fog, and it's just a whole bunch of smoke from a house fire. I thought that was pretty cool. So yeah, after he hears a child scream inside, he decides to be really stupid and just run inside, and basically he finds the body of a badly burnt, yet somehow still living Alessa Gillespie, who, if you've played Silent Hill 1, you'll recognise that name instantly. My main issue with Silent Hill Origins is that Travis's backstory is actually pretty interesting, yet they decided to mostly let Travis's story take a backseat to just explain things that we already knew. And that's it, really. Like, for example, we already knew Lisa was hooked on drugs from the first game, and all they do in this game is show us it happening, and that doesn't really do anything. What else? The combat, whilst it's technically better than Homecoming's was, still didn't work very well in my opinion. First of all, you can attack barefisted in this game, so you can boo, punch. And that's because weapons in this game now have a health, or like a lifespan, and will break after a certain amount of use. And whilst I don't think that's a bad addition to a horror game at all, the way they did it in this game just didn't work. First of all, weapons last, weapons do break often, but the amount of weapons you find in this game, like, is just way too many. And on top of that, there is no limit to how many weapons you can carry, so by the end of the game, you'll be carrying around, like, 17 CRT TVs and, like, 8 IV drip stands or whatever. And on top of that, attacking an enemy constantly will put it in a stun lock, and so there's not even any point to using a weapon when you can just constantly, attack an enemy with your fists and just put it in a constant stun lock, and it will be absolutely okay. So, yeah. Didn't do the best. So, whilst I don't think Origins is a bad game, on the PSP it was pretty damn good, actually, I will admit. It's definitely one of the more average entries into the series, but it wasn't bad at all. Alright, next up we have in number, 6 is a game I really fucking like. Okay, hold on. So yeah, in number 6, we have, where'd it go? Silent Hill Shattered Memories, released in 2009 by once again Climax Studios, and was later ported to the PS2 and the PSP in 2010. So it's basically a reimagining of the first game. And so it kind of seems like Climax is a thing for going back and changing up a lot of this, or like trying to continue on the legacy of the original Silent Hill. But from what I've heard, they wanted to make this, they wanted it to be its own story, like its own unique story with its own unique cast of characters. But Konami was like, no, we want a remake of Silent Hill 1, so they had to compromise by making it a reimagining. So, yeah, this game does away with combat entirely, which I don't mind, just, like, especially after Homecoming's combat, I really don't mind. So yeah, it does away with combat entirely in favour of basically, like, a lot of motion control puzzles, and there's, like, a high amount of exploration of this game, and in that regard, from exploration, I can definitely say this sets a new high for the franchise, because it was really damn good. And yeah, it was really damn good. Like, seriously, every area was just amazingly well detailed. Not to say they weren't in previous games, but, you know. And there's also one more thing. There's chase sequences where basically the whole world will freeze solid and you'll be pursued by monsters. Well, monsters, because there's only one enemy type. And yeah, I wasn't a fan of those parts. I think they could have done with cutting them, to be honest with you. And so yeah, whilst I whilst I don't think the chase sequence is that good, I will admit the premise of Silent Hill Shattered Memories is a very interesting one. Like, you've got a very interesting story here. So the game is split into 3 different segments. We've already talked about 2 of them. There's segments where you'll explore the town and buildings and things like that. And then there's segments where the whole world freezes and you're in the other world. And then there's one more where basically the player will find themselves in front of a psychiatrist and who asks, like, seemingly irrelevant questions, but this is where Shattered Memories gets really good, in my opinion. Definitely it wasn't anything fantastically, it wasn't anything amazing, but, you know, because each answer that the player gives will affect the world around them and how the game's story unfolds, and even the appearance of certain characters. And whilst it's definitely nothing fantastic, it's a pretty damn interesting thing to see the world around you change based on based on what you say. So yeah, I really like that. Right. Once again, let's move on. Oh. Right. So, we have our final non-team silent game. And yeah, this one is pretty good. So finally, for number 5, we have Silent Hill Downpour in 2005. In 2012. This is Silent Hill Downpour, released in 2012 by Vatra Games. So I went into this game thinking it was going to be horrible, like worse than Homecoming, or like worse than like Book of Memories, because everybody had always said this is the worst Silent Hill game. And when I went into it, I was pleasantly surprised by how much I actually found myself enjoying it. First of all, the story is really interesting, and I'm not going to spoil anything for the sake of saving you the story, because I thought it was really good. And one thing I actually liked is that this is the only non-team silent game that actually doesn't use any characters from previous games, as Origins and Shattered Memories both use the cast from the original game. Origins had that Pyramid Head equivalent, and also had the nurses from Silent Hill 2, and Homecoming also shamelessly used Pyramid Head and the nurses. This game has none of that, which is great. First of all, the combat, I really liked how they actually combined elements from Homecoming's and Origins combat, and actually made it work, and made it like a good system. Because in Origins, you know, you had the breakable weapons. First of all, in this game, weapons I find last slightly longer than they did in Origins. And on top of that, you can only carry one weapon. That's it. You can only carry one melee weapon at a time. One weapon, one firearm. That's it. And in Homecoming, there was a thing where different weapons could open up different pathways. Like an axe could chop down boarded up doors. Pipes could open jammed gates, and the knife could cut through cloths. The thing is, though, you always had access to all 3 of those weapons. I mean, you know, it made sense to do that for areas that you'd later revisit once you actually had those weapons. But once you've got all 3 of those weapons, then, you know, a jammed gate is no different from a boarded up door, because you always have access to both of those weapons. like I said, in Downpour, because you only have the one weapon, you might find yourself wanting to hang on to that ladder hook just a little bit longer, because you never know, there might be a ladder up ahead that you can pull down to access some pretty cool goodies. Instead of swapping it out for that shiny new axe. And that was good. That's what I really liked about this game. But sometimes I would find myself, because in Origins, I would often, once I picked up a new weapon, like a healthier weapon, I was just like, yeah, I'll just use this now. But in Downpour, sometimes I find myself passing over things like axes in favor of keeping a ladder hook. Yeah. The music in this game, I just want to mention it because because every other game in the series, apart from Book of Memories, was composed by Akira Yamaoka. But after Shattered Memories, he left Konami finally, and to do his own thing. And then they brought in composer Daniel Licht to do this game, which I also believe he did Book of Memories as well. Whilst I don't think Book of Memories music was very good, and it definitely wasn't anything memorable, Downpours I really liked. I don't think it's as good as any of the previous games, but it's pretty damn good. I did enjoy certain songs like that, and I just thought I'd mention it just because, the music in this game definitely sounds like Dexter music, because it is the same Daniel Licht from Dexter. Right, let's move on. Now we're getting into the big fellas, the big cojones fellas. So, number 4 is one of the ones I often see people pick as their favourite. Number 4 we have Silent Hill 3, released in 2003, so these are Team Silent games now. Now, in my opinion, there is no doubt that the original tetralogy is the pinnacle of the series. But, while Silent Hill 3 is an excellent game, I do think it is the weakest of the original 4. And again, that's not to say it's a bad game. So, basically... Basically, it's a continuation of the original stories from Silent Hill 1. So, Silent Hill 3, you play as Heather Mason, who is a sort of teenager, Harry's daughter, dragged into a world of monsters and cults, As, like, the crazed cult leader wants Heather to birth a god. So, yeah. And it kind of seems like a whole why me type of situation for a long time throughout the game, until it's revealed that she has actually quite strong ties to the town and its rituals. First of all, the controls in this game are fantastic. Best in the series. Like, transitioning from a run to a strafe is just so smooth. Yeah, it feels excellent. It really does. And I it just feels great, and with the new block button as well. I never found myself using the block button with combat, but yeah, whatever. Everything felt great, and I really liked the super strong enemies as well, because even on normal difficulty, some of those guys take a lot of hits. Like, I remember whenever I'd see an insane cancer come up, I would always whip out that shotgun just because, I was like, this is the only way I'm going to survive. And there was other stuff there as well, like the bulletproof vest as well, which whilst it slows you down, it reduces the amount of damage you take. So there was a whole lot of more things. And whilst I think the game definitely focused a little bit too much on combat in those areas, it's certainly a pretty interesting story, although it definitely doesn't live up to Silent Hill 2. Right. Let's move on, eh? So, in number 3, we have Silent Hill, released in 1999. So, originally Silent Hill was supposed to be it was basically just a competitor to Resident Evil, and originally it was supposed to be nothing more than just a Resident Evil clone. But to me, they made something far more memorable than Resident Evil ever was. And I think as well, I really liked how a lot of the limitations of the PS1 actually aided in creating the game's iconic, unnerving atmosphere, with the iconic dense fog that makes up for the low draw distance. I think very few games, to be honest with you, actually come close to the atmosphere that's created by Silent Hill. And I mean, the franchise began here, and seriously, this game still stands the test of time as being a fantastic horror game. It really is great. I still find that Harry's journey into Silent Hill is still a pretty damn good experience. And whilst the controls are definitely a little on the clunky side, you know, there's like a solid second between going from a run to a strafe. They are controls you can get used to, and it's definitely a excellent game to experience. So, yeah, like, honestly, this is awesome. And I think you can get it on the PS Vita as well, and so I'm definitely going to have to get it on the Vita. If that's okay. Silent Hill 1 on the go? That would be awesome. Right. Let's move on. Number 2, we have, well, this may actually just surprise you what my number 2 pick is, because, let me just, God, that's a lot of copies of this game. Right, number 2, we have Silent Hill 2, released in 2001. Now, I'm going to put down a whole bunch of these copies because, you know, there's quite a lot of them here. Right, so there we go, I'll just use this one. Silent Hill 2. So this came out in 2001, and yeah, this game is a masterpiece. There is no denying how good this game is, and you can see why so many people, like, you can see why this is the fan favourite of the series. And yeah, it was originally my favourite, but after going through and playing through a lot of the games again, this game just barely missed out on the top spot. It's fantastic. It really is. It's got one of the best storylines I've ever seen in a game. And the way it just unfolds and the symbolism behind everything is just top notch. It really is. Yeah, I think James Sunderland's story contains like a cast that you've got a really interesting cast of characters and yet who are all psychologically damaged in their own ways. And it's just so great. And of course, when we talk about characters in Silent Hill 2, we've got to mention Pyramid Head, you know, that hellish monster who is considered by many fans to be one of the scariest antagonists ever created for a video game. Yeah, it's awesome, it really is. So yeah, Silent Hill 2, there is no denying this is a fantastic game, and it's definitely the one you want to start with if you're going to try and get into the series. Yeah, but the issues I had with Silent Hill 2 was, first of all, I thought the game was too easy in some areas, because even on normal difficulty, you'll always have enough supplies, like enough health items, to always manage to heal yourself. I liked it in Silent Hill 1, where, well, yes, you still get a little bit more healing items than you would want from a horror game. In Silent Hill 1, I find it to be an okay balance, though, because you always feel like you're just scraping by, like, you only just have enough, like, when you heal yourself, you find yourself only having, like, 1 health drink left. Whereas in this game, I think by the end of my last playthrough, I had like 9 health drinks left, which is not an amount I wanted. And that's not just because I was playing good either. That's just because, you know, the game just gives you way too many items. Right, hey, that doesn't detract from how good this game still is. And like, you know, the story is the main thing. The story is the main thing, and the story is top notch. Not my favourite story in the game, and this also has my favourite twist in the entire series, with Shattered Memories having my second favourite twist. Yeah. Seriously, play this game. It's fantastic. I would recommend the PS2 version because it's the definitive version. Right. My number 1 pick. I'm sure many of you didn't see this coming, eh? Because my number 1 pick for my favourite Silent Hill game is Silent Hill 4, The Room. So this was released in 2004. Again, this was the last of the original Team Silent games. So this game was in development alongside Silent Hill 3. They both started development around the same time. And then this game came out a year after Silent Hill 4 did. So yeah, basically in this game players are inside of an apartment throughout the game, which they will frequently return to, and you explore the apartment in a first-person perspective, which is really cool. And was a first for the series at the time, which was only ever strictly third person before. And honestly, I think some of the apartment sections are some of the best moments in the entire game, because I really like how they start out like really uneventful, and like they really screw with your sense of familiarity and comfort with the small space by, you know, the second half of the game, where with a lot of surprises. Because I really like that, actually, because this is basically the room 302, the apartment, is basically a hub world in this game. And I really liked how, like in this game, what was I saying? I really liked in this game how, you know, with hub worlds usually, like I liked how in this game, like with hub worlds you're usually safe in a hub world and eventually you are not safe in that room. I really like that, and some of the hauntings are some of the scariest moments in the series. So I would definitely say that Silent Hill 3 is probably, I mean, Silent Hill 4 is definitely the scariest game in the series. Because like one example of the hauntings that sticks out to me was the paint, which is a picture haunting, where basically once you go back through the halls to get back to your apartment to save or to manage your inventory or do whatever, there's when you wake up in your bed, there's this one picture that you always look at, and one of the hauntings changes the image on that picture. And I didn't even notice it until I got close to it, and that's when I saw it, and yeah, it was pretty damn creepy. I liked as well that it changed this formula of the series just a little bit, just at the right time, because after 3 games with all the same formula, basically, it was starting to get a little bit stale. And I also, I don't know, I'm kind of split on this, because they improved the combat, and whilst it's technically a better system for combat, like, it definitely works better, I also think as well the fact that it's less clunky, because Silent makes it less scary for enemies, because Silent Hill combat, whether intentional or not, like clunky combat, whether intentional or not, has always been a key part as to what made Silent Hill scary for me. This game's combat is mostly fluid, and here's a little tip for you when it comes to combat. During the animation for the charged attack, Henry is invincible and cannot take damage. So, the best thing to do is, when you're near a group of enemies, charge up that weapon, get up close, wait for them to attack, and then release the attack button. And then Henry, instead of taking damage, Henry will just attack right through. Yeah. And whilst I said that it makes it hard to be as scared, the game makes up for it with truly terrifying monster designs, like the twin victims, for example, and also monsters that you cannot kill, like the ghosts, seriously. And it's super creepy when they follow you throughout the stage. Oh, it's so creepy. Like, just the way that they just feel like they're being dragged towards you. Oh, man, yeah. And again, like I said, you can't kill them. You can briefly knock them down, and you'll get like a couple of seconds, but that's it. I often see a lot of criticism directly towards the second half of the game, because once you get to the hospital in this game, you find Eileen, who is the neighbor that you were spying on throughout a lot of the first half of the game, and you have to leave, and you try to take Eileen through one of the holes back to your apartment, but she can't see them. Only you can see and therefore use the holes. So, yeah, you had to like guide Eileen back through the other worlds, which basically, yeah, it's an escort mission, and you have to go. But I'll admit, it's the least frustrating escort mission I've ever played. Again, as you lead her back through all the levels, I think that was a good thing to do, because I have to see as well, a lot of people say that the game just should have had another like 5 levels or whatever, instead of just recycling the same levels. But the way I see it is, you don't spend that much time in the levels in either visit. You spend like 20 minutes there at most. And so when you combine it together, you've got about 40 minutes of a level, which is about what you would get from any other Silent Hill stage. So that's what it is to me. It's basically just one level split into 2 sections. And like the first section is a few simple puzzles and getting familiar with the whole area. And then the second half is going back through, because because throughout the second half as well, there's this guy, the antagonist, Walter Sullivan, initially just remains this sort of faceless entity throughout the first half of the game. In fact, the first time you speak to Walter, you don't even know it's him. Yeah. And then after you save Eileen, who was supposed to be one of the victims of the 21 Sacraments ritual, Walter himself will actually come after you, as you have now gotten in his way of finishing the 21 Sacraments. And yeah, it really was scary, because the second half of Silent Hill 4 is basically just a panic-driven roller coaster as you desperately try to escape Walter's pursuit. Yeah, super scary. And I would say, you know what, I'm going to say it, Walter Sullivan is a way scarier villain than Pyramid Head. Yeah. I just think it's because Walter's way less scripted than Pyramid Head was, you know, there's a lot less cutscene time with him as well. And yeah, it just helps him to be really creepy. So anyway, that's my list. Like I said, Silent Hill 4 is my favourite game in the series. If there's 2 games I would recommend that you check out, they would be Silent Hill 4 and Silent Hill Downpour. Both of these games are super underrated. and I just love both of them so much. So thank you guys for watching this video. If you liked it, leave a like. Also, tell me your own ranking in the comments if you've played these games. Tell me how you'd rank the Silent Hill games. So yeah, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye.